Administration and Public Works Committee. I declare a quorum. Can we get approval of minutes of the regular meeting of December 12th, 2011?
I move approval of the...
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? City of Evanston payroll through December 4th, 2011, $2,488,703.24.
Move approval. Second.
All those in favor? Aye. City of Evanston payroll through December 18th, 2011, $2,483,492.13.
Move approval. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
City of Evanston bills fiscal year 2011 through January 10th, 2012 of $6,779,309.55. And does anybody have any questions about the bills?
You can do it all.
Okay. And City of Evanston bills fiscal year 2012 through 1/10/2012 of $42,948.59. And credit card activity period ending November 30th, 2011 of $88,663.55.
Move approval. Second.
Does anybody have any questions from the bills list?
We got the answers.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
A 3.1, and I should actually mention that we have people to speak, and Betty, Esther, I'm not sure. Oh, which item are you speaking on, Betty? Oh, I see, A12. Never mind, I got it. So I'll call you right before that. Thanks. A 3.1, approval of renewal of building automation service agreement with Schneider Electric for 2012. Staff recommends approval of the service agreement with Schneider Electric, formerly ITG Solutions, in the amount of $23,184 for fiscal year 2012 to cover hardware, software, and service visits at 8 city facilities. Funding is provided by the facilities management account.
I move approval.
And I would second.
All those in favor? Aye. A 3.2, approval of Amendment 3 to the agreement with the Twin Eagle Resources Management, LLC, for the purchase of natural gas for 16 city-owned buildings. Staff recommends that the City Council authorize the City Manager to negotiate and execute Amendment 3 to the agreement with Twin Eagle Resource Management for the purchase of natural gas for 16 city-owned buildings. The amended term of the agreement shall be effective September 1st, 2013 through August 31st, 2014.
Move approval.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Resolution 1R-12, amending the City of Evanston budget policy. Staff recommends approval of Resolution 1-R-12, amending the city's budget policy. The proposed resolution would increase the city's tax-supported general obligation, GO debt, limit from $90 million to $120 million. The tax-supported debt to equalized assessed value, EAV, ratio in 2004 to 2005 was 5.21%, compared to the proposed new debt limit ratio of 3.63% using the 2010-11 EAV.
Move approval.
Second.
Alderman Grover?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Lyons, are you helping us understand this one? The trend of the city's outstanding debt obligation is going in the right direction, which is downward, but at the same time we're thinking of and asking to expand the debt limit. Help me understand how that makes sense together, or if it's even a fair comparison.
And I'm going to add a question on, so as you're answering that, why are we going up to 120 instead of 110 if the projections do not go above 110?
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the committee, Marty Lyons, Interim Administrative Services Director and Treasurer. If we look at page 119 of the report, I just call your attention to that table about 2/3 of the way down, looking at where we are at on our debt as defined in the policy, meaning debt that is supported by the general tax levy on all properties in the city, as opposed to debt that's paid for from TIF revenues, water revenues, sewer revenues, or grants, or, well, we actually don't have debt that's paid from grants, but from any other source. So when we look at that, we are projecting to top out at about $112,545,000. So the $120 million is looking at if there's anything unforeseen that the council will not have to go back to adjust the policy. We could look at a policy that is no greater than $113 million and set it there and revisit this at the appropriate time in 2012 later on, or at 2013 as needed by the council. So the $120 million is a debt limit before the policy would be revisited by the council.
And revisiting the policy is easy as what we're doing tonight. We're revisiting the policy right now.
And the policy is adopted by resolution. So it is something that the council reviews and may approve on the same night, and certainly is not obligated. This item has been carried on the agenda for a few months as we've gotten through other more pressing issues as far as the budget and other financial issues. So it's not really a housekeeping issue, not given what happened over the last 4 to 5 months with the federal debt discussion, but it is an issue that now that we're moving forward with other issues, I wanted to bring to the council's attention as far as the need to adjust the policy. Otherwise, we are outside of the policy in a document that we're going to publish.
So you're comfortable if we, instead of setting the debt limit as recommended at $120 million, that instead we set it for $113 million, which covers us for the projections in 2013?
Certainly.
You'd be comfortable?
How about maybe 115, just with a little bit of cushion?
I think that's totally, that is a question for the dais.
I have problems with going anywhere above 110 and let's figuring out this debt policy. Looking at the main documents you provided, which were extremely helpful in understanding our past 20, 25 years of debt. Some of the information you gave us wasn't as helpful. The per capita, I don't think, really tells us much of a story. The EAV is really where the story is. We've gone up really high. We're on a better trend, but we're still at a very uncomfortable level. We're at 7.32%. Is that correct, if I'm reading this right? Compared to our debt, other municipalities' debt to EAV ratio is much lower. I continue to be extremely uncomfortable with the amount of debt that we're carrying when we don't know how we're going to pay that debt off. And this doesn't even, from what I understand, looking at this doesn't even include our pension
No, this only
situation.
includes.
That's what so if we're combining all these different pots of money as debt, that's even a larger percentage of what we're bringing in per year. We continue to live way beyond the means of what we're bringing in the door. So I can't approve of this. I know we're already outside the bounds, but it still gives me great pause to continue to raise our credit limit, what we're outstanding. Alderman Holmes.
When we look at the comparison at the other municipalities, I'm always a little bit concerned about that because none of them really compare with our community in terms of who we are, what we provide, the diversity of our community, the things that they have that we don't have. If you go to a Naperville where you have or Skokie, where you have these big shopping malls, that kind of thing. So sometimes I think that is, for me, that is not as helpful as looking at the comparison, because there's no really true comparison with any of these communities on here.
Yeah, I'm surprised that Oak Park wasn't listed on here of what theirs is, because Oak Park continues to be one of the communities that we're most like when we're talking about the type of demographics.
Yes.
That I'm not saying we don't have an exact, but if we're looking at best practices for municipalities, what should be the best practice on our debt ratio? At a 7%, I can't imagine that is a best practice, even if we do have a lot of issues and things that we need to borrow money for. We need to find ways to pay as we go on more of these. Even this year, initially, the city manager talked about moving some of the general fund to capital projects. We didn't do that. Once again, we chose to borrow or tax and spend versus live with what we're bringing in the door. And once again, we're just raising that again. We've seen this over and over again, and I'm not sure why we continue to do that. Alderman Grover.
Mr. Lance, do we have information about a history of our EAV ratio? One of the numbers you offered was 5.21% in 2004, 2005. Do we have a picture of what that ratio has been for the last 10 years?
Yes, we do, and I can provide that. It's actually in our...
Did I miss it?
No, it's not in the report. I think I stopped at about 8 tables.
The tables, most of them were helpful.
Yeah.
It's actually in our comprehensive annual financial report online. It's at the back of that report. So we publish that every year, what our 10-year history is for equalized assessed valuation. Madam Chair, if I may?
Yeah, of course.
The one thing I would say is that recognizing this concern, I still felt we needed to bring this forward because one of the things, even if you referenced before, having it at $110 million, that would still be preferable to making no change whatsoever. We are AAA rated because of the way we issue debt and the way we pay. So the amount of debt we have, yes, when you look at it compared to other communities, it's different. In some cases it's more, in very few cases it's less. But the fact that we go into it open-eyed and have policies makes Fitch, Moody's, those are the two we use presently, gives them a level of comfort, and that's why we are AAA rated. So I would recommend that we consider adjusting the policy to some level. If it's at 110, then you may end up with some limiting factor as far as for the 2012 capital improvements plan, that's at $5,180,000. Does that have to be less, or do we go over by that $1 million, or it's under $2 million that we would go over the limit? But I do recommend to the committee that we look at some adjustment in recognition of the past few years. And then if the other part of this is that if the council and committee are looking for a part of the policy that would prescribe decreases over the next 2 to 3 years in the policy, so that the policy is X for 2012 and Y for 2013 and Z for 2014 to help move us in the right direction.
My fear is they would just go up. But I agree, and I appreciate that you bring this to us. This is not, I do not hold you responsible for the lack of judgment on making policy and spending money. You're bringing us what you need to do as an administrator. I appreciate that. I realize that this is, you're just doing your due diligence. The ratings of the financial institutions, there were many financial institutions that gave amazing ratings for other banks and for people out of loans over the last 6 years that maybe didn't have it right. So I'm not necessarily hold that much stock in that. But if any other questions, we can, Alderman Grover.
I'm going to amend my motion and to increase the debt limit instead of to 120 million to 113 million.
I would second that.
Resolution 1R-12.
A second.
Okay. Any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Nay. For A, thank you, Mr. Lyons, and thank you for all your hard work. I don't think the per capita charts are needed, though. They're not very helpful. Thanks. For our next A5, we have, I believe, 4 speakers. Yes? Are all of you speaking? Wait, yes? Great. So we have Marian Sagan, Rob Munoz, Pat Bernard, and Cheryl Munoz. And we normally give 3 minutes per speaker, and you can line up if you'd like.
I'm Marian Sagan. I live at 828 Oakton, and I've lived here for about 5 years now. And one of my many problems with Oakton is when I'm driving the speed limit down Oakton to the grocery stores especially, which I do about 3 times a week, I get harassed a lot by angry drivers. I'm going too slow, and they're mad. I get honked at, I get fists, and some of them stay behind me. They're not happy. They're very close to my back bumper, and some just get angry and go around me on the left side over the double yellow lines and then swing back in front of me, which is, I'm pretty certain, pretty illegal. So there's regular harassment for obeying the law. Another problem I have where I live is there are plaster in the one wall in the unit I live in that had some really pretty bad cracks, and I had that finished and fixed about 18 months ago, and they're back again already, so I have to call in the fellows that came and did it before and get those fixed. Also, I've noticed that the traffic level has increased on Oakton since I did move in there, and a lot of it is, or has been in the past. There's been a little less just in the last maybe week or so. Very, very large trucks. And if your feet are on the floor in the unit I'm on, which is on the first floor, you actually can feel the vibration. So, I mean, I know that it's cracking the plaster, which is no surprise. So that's my view of living on Oakton. And I do feel upset about them not obeying traffic laws as far as the speed limit goes because of there's 3 schools from where I live down to McCormick. Thank you.
Hi, Rob Munoz, 1729 Oakton. Speaking in favor of A5. A lot of comment is made in the last meeting about this being, a lot of comment was made about this being an engineering problem. That may well be. But many of the neighbors have been at this for 3-4 years, and our appeal to you is that we need some relief. I went to several meetings when we opened up a right turn lane on Oakton and Dodge, and many of the neighbors warned at that time that we were going to get some negative effects, speeding, trucks, and we've been pretty diligent coming to meetings and asking for redress. Many of us have had real property loss, and as you know, protecting property is one of your principal responsibilities here in the council. Many of us fear for the students that go to school every day at Oakton and at Chute and at Dawes, two of which of those schools I actually went to, and I'm very proud to say I graduated from. So I would hope that you would, consider this appeal and take action. As for the traffic department, the feeling is among the neighbors that there's some effort, there is some might I say traction on their part to address these issues, but there's sort of a fundamental disconnect about what our needs really are. And we just hope that this appeal, this last appeal that we're making, will really bring the kind of change that we need. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. Pat Bernard. Oops. I live at 2115 Keeney, so it's 2 blocks north of Oakton. And it's not that close, but it does affect me. When I drive down Oakton, I usually try to go a little slower than the speed limit. But one of the things that I've noticed as I drive down Oakton is that sometimes when people are trying to cross the street, they can't because the traffic is going too fast. So I think along with this 20 mile an hour, a stop sign somewhere along there would be helpful. So thank you.
Cheryl Muno, 1729 Oakton Street. Nice to see everyone again. I thank you for last week's installation of the 2 speed monitors that were placed on Oakton, just east of Ridge and west of Dodge. We have been seeing on our end of Oakton a lot of brake lights from the eastbound vehicles. They seem to be helping out, and I'm pretty enthusiastic about that. But it's not really helping those of us in the block that's just east of Dodge, because where the placement of the eastbound sign is down closer to Chute School. So we're still getting a lot of the speeding, and we have major cracks in front of our home in the street, which is causing a lot of vibration inside of our home. Maybe we could reconsider the placement of one of those signs a little closer so that we could benefit as well as the residents that are down in the 16 and 1500 block. It's been going on 5 years now since Oakton area residents began complaining to our traffic division of trucks, speeding, safety, and property damage concerns. The street has deteriorated to a point where we have an extended cab pickup that shakes our home when it comes down the street. The requested permanent 20-mile-per-hour zone is important to us, but I have a strong sense that it's not going to be passed, since it seems to be agreed that Chief Eddington's argument of lowering the speed limit is not the answer to our problem, but instead the resolution requires an engineering response. He asserted that one contributor to our issue is Oakton's very width, which is contributing to the speeding. It is fair to say that we agree that an engineering response will help alleviate the issue. The resurfacing of the street, the addition of bump outs and bike lanes, etc., they're all excellent ideas, and we champion them. But would possibly narrowing Oakton Street and only allowing parking on one side, similar to the layout of Main Street, help to address this issue? And would such an option have the added benefit of lowering the cost of the repaving, since it would require less material? It's something to consider. These are all thoughts for our traffic engineers to consider, in addition to lowering the speed limit. Bear in mind, street repaving is not going to come to us at a minimum for several months and possibly years if the schools will not work with us. We, your tax-paying residents, need immediate relief. Weeks, months, and years are not acceptable when we have already waited years and fought every step of the way for the small gains we have made. We have major issues. Safety concern for children and residents alike. Property damage we have been sustaining for years now from bouncing caused by speeding vehicles in the deteriorating street. Loss of quality of life due to the extreme noise pollution that's invading our homes from speeding traffic. Many of our homes don't have alleys behind them. Our only egress to and from our homes is directly onto Oakton from our driveways. It's an ongoing battle with speeding traffic and rude drivers. You can't imagine how disheartening it is to have drivers ignore you and block your driveway as you're attempting to back into the street, and have drivers that tailgate and honk at you when you slow down to turn into your driveway. Just try to imagine living like this on a daily basis. If any member of our city council or traffic division lived on Oakton or one of its nearby side streets, this issue would never have stretched on as long as it has. Please help us tonight and address our concerns with an immediate, very simple resolution that will not cost the city very much. If you're unwilling to give us the permanent 20-mile-per-hour zone, then consider adding 1 or 2 stop signs. The stretch of Oakton between Dodge and Asbury is an area unimpeded that allows drivers to go fast as they possibly can. With the police force that is stretched thin dealing with crime, enforcement has its limitations. For example, if traffic were forced to come to a stop with the very simple addition of a 3-way stop sign at the corner of Oakton and Dewey where Shoup Playfield ends, much of the speeding would be curtailed. Drivers would naturally slow down when they approach the crosswalk that's in front of Shoup. Both east and westbound traffic speeds in the long stretch past that crosswalk and the way through to Dodge. East of Asbury, drivers are slowing down due to the narrowness of the street and the addition of the crosswalk that you guys added at Barton, and we thank you for that. Adding a 3-way stop sign at Dewey would help side street residents who complain of inordinately long waits to gain access onto Oakton, since drivers would slow down with the knowledge they're approaching a stop sign. Please do not tell us no out of hand and treat our serious concerns casually. We travel throughout our city and see areas where residents are protected, and we are only asking for similar treatment. For example, Ridge between Emerson and Central has 4 traffic lights at side street locations, and Lake Street has 3 stop signs between Asbury and Dodge, something I've mentioned in the past. We have 3 schools, a solid residential community. Please give us a resolution that addresses the concerns pursuant to safety, property damage, and our deteriorating quality of life. While the city works toward getting our street repaved, please give less consideration to the drivers who are breaking traffic laws in an effort to get to their destination 1 whopping minute faster, and give Evanston's own tax-paying residents relief with either a permanent 20-mile-per-hour enforced zone or this alternate, immediate, very limited cost fix that will address every one of our issues through slowing traffic. A 3-way stop sign added at Dewey where Shoup Playfield
Cheryl, can you wrap up, please?
Is an engineering
Thanks.
response to an engineering problem.
So my name is Diane Novak. I live at 1709 Oakton, and I actually live on the cross street of Dewey and Oakton. And on several occasions, I have sat out on my front porch and I've watched people try to cross Oakton Street. I've watched them try and cross from the north side, so north of Oakton to the south side, and it looks like a lot of them are going towards the Levy Center or towards James Park, and they really have a hard time crossing. We sat actually on a Sunday morning. It was kind of cool and rainy, and it was really amazing how much foot traffic there was. People coming from both the south side to the north and the north to the south side, just waiting for the traffic to slow down enough to cross the street. It really seems like a very common pathway for people to walk. And I think Cheryl's right that I actually took the train this morning and I walked down Oakton and saw the stops, or the speed limit signs for the first time, and I was watching to see if people were slowing down, and they really didn't seem to be slowing down when it said slow down, your speed is. I think you had maybe mentioned that at one point you can post the speed limit, but people aren't necessarily going to slow down. I think those bump outs are really effective, and maybe putting a crosswalk there at Dewey would break up the Dodge or Oakton enough between Dodge and Asbury, because there is a pretty thoroughfare there and there are a lot of people trying to cross the street. I think the bump outs get people's attention. Oftentimes they don't know if they're supposed to stop or not, so a lot of people actually stop at those even when there's no pedestrians. So just by having it present, I think makes people a little bit more conscientious about how fast they're going and whether or not they should be stopping. I very much would appreciate the slowing down of traffic just for the noise. The noise gets pretty bad. Oakton's pretty, the faster the cars go, the noisier it gets. So personally, I like to garden. My garden is in that front yard right there on Oakton where I get a lot of sun, and it sure would be nice to be able to garden out there without all the noise. But I think if we're talking about safety, a bump out or something would be really effective, or a stop sign.
Melissa Thompson. I live at 1805 Oakton Street. I'm a recent resident to Evanston, although I used to live in the north side of Chicago. I also briefly served on the East Andersonville Residents Council and lived on Foster Street, so I'm very familiar with this issue, and was part of the team that helped initiate the bump outs, the crosswalks, and the humps, bumps, and tables that we put into that neighborhood to slow traffic. And it is a thriving business district now. After moving up here, I have been very dismayed that Oakton has become rather racetrack. Frankly, I also, for the life of me, can't figure out what they're transporting on Tuesday and Thursday nights between 11 p.m. and 1 a.m. It sounds like top secret Jurassic Park Tyrannosaurus Rex transport, because my entire house shakes. My bedroom's on the second floor with my husband, and we've been jolted out of bed several times with the truck traffic and the excessive speeding. I commend the Evanston Police Department. I have seen additional presence. I've seen the ticketing. I've also seen the slowing down with the traffic signs, so I think these are all wonderful measures. I'm really looking forward to hopefully seeing a resurfacing like that was just done on Dodge Street. We are concerned about appropriate use of our tax dollars for these initiatives, because we want to see them done sooner as opposed to later. I appreciate you hearing our comments tonight. I am very pleased to be living in Evanston. It's a lovely town, and I had family that lived here before, so I understand we just have work to do. Thank you for listening to my comments tonight.
I was hopeful that Director of Public Works Suzette Robinson could bring us up to date on what you've done since our last meeting and the plans for the future as... Should we move these? Oh, wait. Actually, I need to call it through. Hold on a second. A5, Ordinance 113-0-11, amending portions of Title 10, Chapter 11, traffic schedules relating to speed limits on Oakton Street. The 9th Ward Alderman has requested the proposed ordinance 113-0-11, by which the City Council would amend Section 10-11-2, Schedule 2, to establish a 20-mile-per-hour speed limit on Oakton Street between Dodge Avenue and Ridge Avenue. The ordinance was held in committee on December 12th, 2011.
I'll move the ordinance.
Okay. Ms. Robinson?
Good evening, Chair members and members of the Administration and Public Works Committee. I'm Suzette Robinson, the Director of Public Works, and as all the members indicated, we had, I submitted a memo in the Friday packet which outlined the response to questions and issues that were raised at the previous meeting, and I will go over those briefly, and also I have a picture of what the speed display monitor that we installed on Oakton, and I'll show that to you later. One of we had several areas that the committee asked us to take a look at. They wanted us to look at the mitigation measures, the speed and the volume data, accident history, and there was some question about what vehicles were exempted under what circumstances. The mitigation measures that are available is, of course, resurfacing, and you guys asked for an update on the cost to resurface, and that cost total is $1.7 million, $1.2 million for Dodge to Ridge, and $500,000 for Ridge to Callan. The 9th Ward has one project that is scheduled for next year, which I believe is $400,000, $300,000 for the resurfacing of Madison Street. So the resurfacing mitigation, as I indicated earlier, is not programmed for 2012, but we will be doing a pavement evaluation where we evaluate and rate all the pavement surfaces, and it will just list all the streets in a priority order based on what the consultant says on an engineering rating, and we bring those ratings to City Council, and we do like a leveling board. I mean, we'll have a recommendation on the streets that we think, and based on the dollars that are allocated each year for capital improvement resurfacing, we develop a 5-year plan based on that. So City Council dictates what the priorities are for which streets get done when. The next mitigation area that we already submitted for was a bump out for in front of Chute School. We try to do the pedestrian bump outs as much as possible in conjunction with the street crossings, because it really does help. We do have some operational concerns with bump outs. They tend to collect trash because it doesn't allow for it doesn't allow the street sweeper to move easily down the street along the curb, and it also tends to accumulate snow. So, but that's not a reason not to do them. Just want people to understand that there are some operational concerns, just like there are with speed humps. Similar situation occurs when we install speed humps as well. So the cost, we have submitted Wesley. That project is $35,000. We have not heard back from IDOT yet for the Safe Routes to School program. So once we hear from them, we would go ahead and do a bump out at Wesley. The other thing that we did, which is up for display now, is we installed a semi-permanent radar speed display along Oakton. And here you'll see that one vehicle was going 12 miles an hour at this point. And the radar, the sign itself is set so that if you go above 5 miles above 20 miles an hour, between 7 a.m. and 4 p.m. is the time that it's set for when school is in operation. If you go 5 miles over, it goes to 26, and then the next sign, and it goes to slow down. So immediately, and if you're going faster, much faster than that, the slowdown flashes faster as you're approaching. We have observed the traffic slowing down as a result of that. I think that one of the residents mentioned observing speed lights, and we observed the same in the area. So we think, while not a 100% solution, it has improved the situation. And then the next information, we actually looked.
Ms. Robinson, could I interrupt you really quick? I think Ms. Muno suggested, so we can move these around. They seem pretty portable, of moving it possibly closer to Dodge somewhat. And I think you had mentioned, this may have been months ago, of many times when these are up in the same place that people just sort of become used to them, and instead if we keep moving them around, they're more likely to have a better effect. So what is the time ratio on how long you keep it in one spot? I'm not sure if you have that information, but
we have 4 of these units, and so we plan to keep them in place about a month and then relocate them after that. So they are semi-portable, not as portable as we'd like, but you know, the electricians can move them around. And the next information that was provided was the speed data and the volume data in the areas. Going to the second page, the average speed, the 85 percentile. Sorry, the 85 percentile on Oakton between Barton and Asbury was 30 miles an hour. Asbury and Dodge 33, and Dodge and Hartree 35 miles.
And the posted speed limit there is 30, am I right?
That's correct. Right? Yes. The volume data is 15,000. and that's based on the evening peak and morning peak hours. And then we provided some comparison data for some of our other primary routes. And then we provided you also the 3-year accident data, I think you also requested. And the last area, you asked about the truck exemption piece. In the ordinance that was passed, it does indicate that vehicles vehicles are exempt if operational constraints restrict them from being able to use, actually, they're exempt if they have to use, due to operational constraints, they have to use the non-truck route to get where they're going. And some of that is the case, I think, of some of the vehicles that are accessing Evanston lumber, not all. And we met with them to talk to them about, which vehicles we thought, and they have really tried to comply and reduce the numbers. We also looked at some additional information.
Not to disagree completely, but those, unlike what Ms. Munoz said, there is an alderman that lives on a route that has trucks that would be me. So the trucks coming down Oakton make the left on Custer and drive in front of my house, and it's constant. So I'm not sure how much has really changed with those semis going into Evanston lumber. And looking at the various routes, I'm still not completely understand why we're putting the needs of a truck driver in front of the needs of our residents, and why the vehicle could not go down Howard, make the left on Chicago, which is a major street, and then either come down probably be Washington and then make the right on Custer. That's all commercial and would not be hitting residential. So it just doesn't make sense to me why we're constantly making the choice to accommodate one business versus having many residents from really Hartree to Callan just not only personally disturbed on a daily basis, but their property disturbed. But because Evanston Lumber can't get their lumber if they don't go this particular route, that just doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to me. So I would be very happy if we could talk to Evanston Lumber about getting their trucks to go a different way. I have been saying this for how many years now have we had this conversation? At least 2.5, and I haven't seen much change on the truck situation. So we see them every day.
And let me just say that the scenario that you described, they couldn't make the viaduct. So they can't go down Chicago Avenue because they couldn't get under the viaduct to get over to Custer. Right, isn't that what we talked about? On Howard, the Howard viaduct, the viaduct on Howard, they can't get under. That's what she said, Chicago. She said Chicago.
Yeah, thank you, Director Robinson. I have a couple of questions. Thank you for the vehicle data, the crash data, the speed and volume. What conclusions do you and your staff draw from that data? That most cars are driving at or near the speed limit posted at 30?
Yes.
And about the accident data, that there is too many accidents, of course. Most of them seem to be at Ridge, Dodge, and Asbury over the 3-year period. Is there anything about the data that warrants traffic calming measures such as installation of stop signs at any of the intersections?
No, the traffic engineer is coming up here to explain that to you.
And another question was, do we have a permanent 20-mile-per-hour posted speed anywhere in Evanston?
Rajiv Dal, senior traffic engineer.
Mr.
Yes, we
Dahl.
do have 20 mile per hour on some of the, the local residential streets. The data, looking at the data, I haven't had time to break it down and why the cause of the accident data itself. If they're pedestrian related or bicycle related, we have to look at and see if there's any mitigation measures. The number of accidents at the intersections, signalized intersections do get more accidents because what happens is people do tend to stop at the last minute and people behind them rear end them, or people are running through red lights or making turns when they're not supposed to. They're looking at this data between the streets on the mid block. Nothing jumps out as high, but again, one thing we haven't had chance to do is whether some of those are related to pedestrians or bicyclists, and that would be a concern if there are pedestrian or bicycle accidents.
Alderman Holmes.
Oakton, like Maine, Dodge, Maine, Dempster, Church, Emerson, is an entryway also into Evanston, correct? So
It's not a truck route.
Well, I'm not talking about the trucks, but I'm talking about in terms of 20 miles, a permanent 20 miles. I understand about the school, but would that not? What would that start for us for other residents? I'm thinking about my Church Street people who are going to come up and ask the same question. Then would we be doing, if we did that, would we not be maybe opening up some issues in terms of permanent 20 miles on an entry street into the community?
But I think you have, it's a unique entry street. From the time you pass let's say Aldi, let's say Home Depot, just because everyone knows where Home Depot is. Once you pass Home Depot, the entire right side of Oakton, or the south side of Oakton, is almost a continuous stretch of a land use that involves children. So you immediately involve James Park as soon as you pass Home Depot, all the way to Dodge.
Right.
And then you have the school in the corner. Then you go a block with residential on both sides. Then you immediately hit the playground at Dewey. That takes you almost all the way to Asbury. Then you have another, let's say, not even full city block. And then you immediately, you have the old Osco jewel site, then you have the Shell, or no, it's whatever, Valero, whatever, gas station. Then you have a couple houses. Then you immediately start again the playground and the school, and then you hit Ridge, and then there's residential. I can't think of any other street in Evanston. Okay, go for it.
I think the nearest analogy is West Central Street, which is an extraordinarily wide thoroughfare. There's park, it's residential. I think it's all mostly R1 zoning. And the West Central Street stretch, it's also a truck route. And one of the solutions, I think there were issues, correct me if I'm wrong, with the speed of the traffic on that stretch of Central Street, was to add bike lanes, create some friction along that stretch of Central Street, and then the bump outs across from and at Bent Park. And frankly, I don't know if that's had the desired effect to calm traffic along that stretch of Central, but those have been big improvements to this long stretch of, Evanston has very few stretches of open road. We can't even think about it that way compared to, the Wild West, but in this dense urban setting. But that west portion of Central Street seems to me is a good analogy. We've done some things on that part of it that I hope have made a difference.
And that's what I've been asking for on Oakton and have not received. If we can do it on Central Street, we can do it on Oakton. We have a lot of
We didn't
children.
change the speed limit,
But I've been before I asked to have the speed limit changed, I've been asking for 2.5 years to make changes on Oakton for traffic calming, and not much has been done to change that. So when I'm asking again, bringing the 20 miles per hour is because Public Works has not been able to find a way to slow down the traffic. And I use the analogy as well, as we're doing a lot on the Veolia piece. We have residents that are seeing a problem with Veolia. The smell, the trucks, it is a day-to-day problem for those residents. And we are doing everything we can. We're throwing money at it. We're throwing legal at it. That's what I'm asking for these residents. The same thing I'm asking. And we're not doing nearly as much for my residents on Oakton as we're doing for the residents about the Veolia station. I'm asking for relief. If we can't come up with the $1.7 million this year, which once again, I'm not asking to take it from your wards. I know that I have to get in line like everybody else has to get in line, or everybody should have to get in line. Okay, I understand.
These are all our residents.
No, okay,
And-
but
and the
it's the
residents
Ninth Ward
who live on
residents that are,
Central Street are your residents too.
but the
and-
Ninth Ward
and I
residents
have real
are
concerns
the
for-
ones that are being affected, and the Eighth Ward residents
Right.
by this.
And I'm really glad we're talking about it, and I'm really glad that we're going to find a solution to
and-
it.
and what I'm
because
saying is-
we're looking to look out
But-
for everybody in Evanston.
But Alderman Grover-
regardless of what ward they live in.
But Alderman Grover, I've been asking for 2.5 years from Director Robinson and her team to fix this problem, and I have not received relief. So I am here now asking for another sense of relief, and I'm still not getting an answer from Public Works or from the police, or, hello, our city manager is here now,
They both work for me, so I could speak for both of them.
to how to fix this problem for these residents.
It looks like there are lots of potential solutions.
Of the, on the packet.
But none of them worked.
That what Public Works has done in terms of trying to take care of the problem. I mean, there's a whole list of things, that have been done. Certainly, it has not taken away, and I understand it because I'm at church in McDaniel, and believe me, the neighbors on Church had the same questions about the trucks, about cracks in their homes, all that. So I understand it, I really do. And we have the high school, so we have the issue of the traffic. I was particularly talking about a permanent, when I started this, was talking about a permanent 20-mile-an-hour zone. I just have some issues with that. I think that, and if you remember at the last meeting, I asked if we could take down the piece that said when kids are present or whatever it is, I can't remember now, and that we can't do because it's a state law. But I think that there has been some, I don't think it's fair to say that there hasn't been any response because here's a whole list of things that have been done. And it has
But they
not
haven't
taken
worked.
care of it. They haven't worked. Okay, so then we have to keep trying.
And Veolia still has a waste transfer station in Evanston, too, just for the
And
record.
I was going to say, it's still here. And it still smells.
Yep.
I'd love to see the bump out at Wesley. And despite the operational difficulties that the bump outs present, I think they're effective at protecting pedestrians and slowing traffic at those
And
junctures.
Madam Chair.
As well as crosswalks.
And more would be better.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Mr. Bobkowitz.
In speaking with both Ms. Robinson and Chief Eddington earlier today, I thought I'd try to come up and give some perspective. You're absolutely correct. This has been an issue. You've been very vocal about it, and we understand that you've not been happy. But as Alderman Holm mentions, we do believe we've made some progress. Are we finished? Absolutely not. And we would like to continue to work on this issue. If the council feels that the speed limit issue is appropriate, then we will follow that direction. If not, we will continue to work on traffic calming. I've heard a couple of specific issues that we would be happy to come back at the council's direction with costing for that and to see if we can move forward in 2012. If not, then it would be part of the 2013 discussion. We would also continue to work with local businesses. We have been talking with Evanston Lumber. We will continue to talk. I think we've learned a lot from the work that both the Public Works and police have done about exactly who's coming down the street. The woman, one of the speakers mentioned who's coming between 11 p.m. and 1 a.m. We think we know, and we think it's the linen service for St. Francis Hospital. So we have identified what that truck is because it comes down, makes a lot of noise at the same time of night, so we're able to now reach out to St. Francis Hospital to work on that. So this has been a work in progress. The speakers are absolutely correct. Some of the drivers, and we'll say they're all coming from Skokie because Evanston residents would have behaved this way, are rude, are not mindful of the speed limit, and will continue to use engineering through traffic calming. We'll continue to use the police to enforce it. But as you all know, we have these issues all throughout Evanston, and I think it's a matter of finding the correct mix. Alderman Grover speaks to some improvements that have been made over time on Central Street. I don't believe those happened overnight. I don't believe they were solved overnight. We'll continue to work on Oakton. If the council feels that the speed limit is appropriate, fine. If it does not, we would be happy to take specific direction to continue moving forward. But Alderman Burris is absolutely correct. This has been an issue that she's raised with me, has raised with Public Works, with police. We're not going to rest until we solve it. It's just finding that mix of, as Ms. Robinson has said, it's a mix of education, it's a mix of engineering, it's a mix of enforcement. All of those things taken together. We've not yet found the right mix.
I've always found that bouncing tennis balls in front of speeding cars slows them. Yeah. Snowball.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
No.
We have a stalemate.
We can send it up to council.
Goes on to council.
Yeah, we'll send it up.
Thank you. A6, Ordinance 2-0-12, authorizing the sale of Evanston Police Department K-9 program dog. This is an interesting one. Recommended adoption of Ordinance 2-0-12 to authorize the sale of a K-9 program dog with the Evanston Police Department to Officer Scheinenbein. Great, super. Chief Eddington recommends that the ordinance be introduced and adopted on January 9th, 2011, due to the nature of the transaction. Suspension of the rules is requested for introduction and action on January 9, 2012. Chief Eddington.
Good evening, Madam
I recommend
Chairman.
adoption of the adoption.
Okay.
I move adoption of the adoption.
Nice. Please go ahead.
If there are no questions, I'm happy. Or if there are questions, I'm happy also.
Let's go with no questions.
Jack, our K-9, has been in service for approximately 7 years. Unfortunately, late fall 2011, he had a serious infection in his hips. We have rehabilitated him as much as possible, but it became clear he was no longer had the stamina to be a work dog, so it's time for him to retire. Through discussions with the city manager, we've reinitiated a replacement for Jack, and I think it's extremely positive that its current handler, Officer Scheinbein, wants to adopt him and keep him as a family pet after he's retired.
Would you please tell the officer thank you on our behalf and hope it all goes well? That's great.
Thank you.
Alderman Holmes.
No, not on this. I need to go back to A5.
Okay, can we vote on this and then go back?
Yes.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Yes, Alderman
I
Holmes.
just need to know in terms of, do we need a vote on moving up the resurfacing on Oakton as a part of this? I mean, because I certainly think that's something that needs to be done.
I believe that what
Maybe just a part of it.
is that we're going to be talking about the capital improvement and the resurfacing coming up soon to talk about the 5-year plan,
Okay, great.
and that'll be part of it.
Okay, great.
Is when it's happening,
Okay.
is my understanding. If I am wrong on that, please correct me. Okay. Mr. Stonebeck says I'm correct, and he's never wrong. A7, Ordinance 3-0-12, amending Section 7-2-6 of the City Code to enact regulations for moving vehicles and storage containers on public ways. Staff recommends adoption of proposed Ordinance 3-0-12, by which the City Council would amend Section 7-2-6, occupancy of public ways for business purposes, to occupation of public ways for special purposes, and which establishes the process to reserve parking space in the right-of-way to load and unload moving vans and containers.
Move adoption.
Alderman Grover.
The proposed amendment to the ordinance does not mention the fee. Is the fee already in existence? The $100 fee for the
I believe we raised it during budget
for
season.
parking moving?
Yeah, we did.
We did.
Yeah, because there was one recommendation, and then we moved it to 100, if I remember correctly. We'll see Mr. Lyons, but I think that we did.
Just want to make sure that if this ordinance included the fee, that it should be in the ordinance, but if it's already part of our
Mr. Schneider?
code, then.
Do you have,
Madam Chair, committee members, Paul Schneider, city engineer. Yeah, currently existing, there is no fee for this service. So I think what we're looking,
That's right.
I'm sorry? Right, and I think, as Rajiv mentions, that that's what was established during the budget discussion.
okay. So it went from 0 to 100.
Correct.
Will we have a separate ordinance then establishing that fee, or did we do it as part of the
I think it was
budget?
part of the budget.
It was part of the budget, yeah.
But we need either an ordinance or policy that says there is a fee.
I thought, I was trying to go back.
It's under the summary, but
Right.
I don't know if it's in the ordinance.
Proposed ordinance.
Permits and requisite, oh, I see, where it needs requisite fee. Mr. Bobkowitz, to the rescue.
Help?
Madam Chair, members of the committee, as part of the budget, the council made adjustments to various fees and charges. We took care of most of them prior to Christmas. This is the remainder. So while the council gave policy direction with the adoption of the budget, we need to double back now and have the ordinances amended.
But the proposed ordinance tonight does not specify what the fee is. It just says there is a requisite fee.
Yeah.
So I'm just concerned that the amount of the fee would not be anywhere in our code.
And my understanding is that fees then are set by separate fee resolutions. I'll grab Mr. Lyons. I think so. We would need to come back. My understanding was this was the one step we needed. If we need to come back with a second step, if you'd like, we can have additional information for you at full council.
Just answer that simple question. That'd be
Very
great.
good.
Thank you.
Apologize.
Any other questions? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Great. Ordinance A8, Ordinance 4-0-12, amending portions of the Title 10-12-2 to violations of the Illinois Vehicle Code relating to seatbelt use. Staff recommends adoption of Ordinance 4-0-12, amending Evanston City Code, Title 10-12-2, making a municipal violation for drivers and passengers to not use safety belts by making it unlawful for any person to violate 625 Illinois Code 5-12-603.1 of the Illinois Vehicle Code. Any questions? All those in favor? Sorry, Alderman Grover, sorry.
Never mind.
All those in favor? Aye. Sorry. Ordinance 8-0-12, adopting the Evanston City Code 2012. Staff recommends passage of Ordinance 8-0-12, adopting the Evanston City Code 2012. Exhibit A includes the 2011 provisionally approved amendments and revisions to the Evanston City Code, which can be found on the City of Evanston website.
Second.
Any questions? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? A10, Ordinance 9-0-12, amending liquor license classes H, N, and O, clarifying the prohibition on selling single containers of beer less than 40 ounces in volume. Local Liquor Commissioner recommends City Council adoption of Ordinance 9-0-12, which prohibits license from bundling, taping, packing together, or otherwise manipulating single containers of beer for resale as a set.
Move approval.
Alderman Holmes, do you have, this is really hard to read, by the way.
I just had, I was imagining them in Whole Foods taking what are those, 6 packs? And then make them into 3s and 2s and 4s, and, to sell them. I mean, that's what it says.
All those in favor? Aye. Great. Ordinance 10-0-12, amending Class S liquor license. Local Liquor Commissioner recommends City Council adoption of Ordinance 10-0-12, which permits the sale of wine, beer, and alcoholic liquor in the package store area of a combination restaurant package store licensee. Can I get a second?
Second.
Any questions? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Approval to reimburse. Oh. I'm going to read it, and then do you want to come up and speak? Great, thank you. Approval to reimburse the Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, for fair market value of property located at 1817 Church Street. Staff recommends that the City Council authorize the City Manager to reimburse HUD $220,000 from the West Evanston TIF for the Community Development Block Grant investment in 1817 Church Street, per HUD regulations. This agenda item was held in committee on December 12th, 2011. Okay. Ms. Esther? Betty Sue? And did you want to speak?
I had for A10.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
No problem. It'll be brief.
Okay, yes, please, no, actually, you can speak. Sorry about that. I missed it.
Good evening, Council. I'm Jeff Hill, District Manager for World Market Stores, representing the World Market on Maple. And we do actually in a section have what we call a create a 6-pack, where based upon microbrews and eclectic beers, it's where consumers can create their own 6-pack, and I think that's what's driving some of this amendment and ordinance. So I just came here basically to see in regards to, number one, if there's any questions, and then as it pertains to the sale of alcohol, we take it very seriously. So in terms of, amendment, when it was passing, anything related to this, I just wanted to make sure that I was in the loop with the information so we can make sure the stores are, in compliance with the amendments. So I just wanted to let you know that that's something that we do have in place at this point in time, but we do also have very strict measures and understand that they can't make any purchases less than a 6-pack or less than 40 ounces.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, and I apologize for passing over. Betty Sue, thank you.
No problem. My name is Betty Esther. I stay at 2031 Church Street. I'm here tonight to speak on A12-1 and A12-2, which all is concerning 1812 Church Street. When this building was returned to the city because the project did not finish when the not-for-profit organization was working in it, it was promised by the council, half of the members not here, that there would be a community meeting. My own alderman told me that it would not be just a community meeting of the residents of the 5th Ward, but a citywide community meeting to discuss what would happen to this building. Tonight is supposed to be reading the council members and everything and hearing through the grapevine. This building is supposed to be sold, and it will be used to house small business contractors to use as office space. And I see we are using $420,000 of taxpayer money, giving it to the people that is buying this building. I have some questions and concerns. One, I'm sorry that the community did not take part in this. This is just once more and sidestep that my ward it's always have to face. How are we going to give, I don't know what the sale price is, but we need to give the buyer $200,000 to be able to fix it. Is any of his sale price going to help pay off the debt to HUD? We said that $220,000 is the fair market value. Is that the appraised value that was given for this historical building? And how can we approve money to HUD to pay off something, a loan to somebody to help them fix up the building, when there is no amendments on this here agenda that says we're going to negotiate a sale or sells it to anybody? So who are we selling it to when you don't have an amendment on this agenda that's dealing with those items? One, the city manager usually negotiates something. Two, you have a sale contract. This agenda is telling me there is no such thing is happening. So, in the rush to do this, the building will be occupied, which is good, but this is another rush to do something to sidestep somebody to get it off the road and get it going. The community was not involved. Here, I can understand Alderman Grove's frustration when she said for 2 years that she has been trying to get something happening on Overton Street. Since 2001, since this has been all about with the TIF and stuff, we, the community, and me personally, have been here trying to be involved and engaged in bringing our community to something that we can say, I had a part in it. The only part that I get is when I come up here and say something and you look at me and then you vote. But tonight you cannot vote on this item because, one, how are you going to give a loan to somebody that you are not negotiating with and you do not have a contract with? This agenda does not have that on there, so I don't think you can vote on these two items tonight. Thank you.
Mr. Radkovich or Mr. I can't do your last name. Mrs. Holmazak, Paul. Do either one of you want to discuss? Yeah. And Ms. Flax, if you would like to talk as well, you're more than welcome. We've been working on this for a long time together.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, my name is Nancy Razovich. I am the Economic Development Manager. Paul Zalmazek is here too. He's our one of our Economic Development Coordinators. And Sarah Flax, who has been working on this for a very, very long time, will probably be able to, and I might turn it over to Sarah first to kind of talk a little bit about the history of how we got to this point, because there were several meetings related to the CDBG portion of it.
Thank you, Sarah. I know we've been working on this for at least 6 years that I know of, so good to hear the history.
Good evening, members of the committee. Sarah Flax, Housing and Grants Administrator. The Housing and Community Development Act Committee has wrestled with this whole process and how to effectively use this building for ever since it was taken back from the group that was unable to turn it into the successful museum. We had any number of meetings. We had meetings with museum people. We had meetings with the community. They were at the Housing and Community Development Act Committee meeting specifically, and I don't have the dates in my head, but there were two in the spring of last year when we met and really discussed how we'd reached an impasse. We'd had tours of the building that were public. We had a number of people actually go through the building. We set up separate tours in addition to look at it, decide how it might be used, and One of the things that came up in one of those meetings was actually Tim Rosinski, a local realtor and a longtime resident of Evanston, said one of the challenges was to developing it, redeveloping it, was the restriction in how it was stated that the museum/cultural center function. As a result of that, the committee scheduled its next meeting and said, hey, we want to hear anything that anyone is going to be able to come up with that would be a productive use of this building. And that is actually when the Evanston Contractors Consortium brought forward their proposal. So there's been a significant public process, I think appropriately in the Housing and Community Development Act Committee, which oversees the building because of the CDBG funds that have been invested in it.
Bradkovich, do you want to follow up?
Good evening again. The exact dates, we actually kind of put the history in one of the several memos that were associated with this. So April 26th was the first time it had gone to the CDBG committee. It went back again on May 17th. And on June 21st is when they voted it out and asked staff, community and economic development staff, to work with the legal staff to try to see if we can make this project happen. So over the course of those, following that, we went, one other meeting, we went to the Economic Development Committee in July, specifically to talk about the construction loan. One of the things I just wanted to point out is the construction loan is being proposed to be paid back. So that $200,000 will be paid back. With respect to the appraisal, the property was appraised in accordance with HUD's guidelines. It was appraised for fair market value. So that came back at $220,000. So that's part of this process, is to transition that property. What staff has been working on with the proponents, who are pretty much all here in attendance again, is to come up with some basically some performance standards, as well as guidelines to kind of pay back that over the course of the years in the agreement. So there's actually 4 different items. The ordinances for the negotiation of the sale, both of those 2 related items were actually brought up for introduction in November, because we had to do that first for introduction and then bring these all together at December. So now everything is together at this point. I'm not sure if there's additional information that you want.
I want to be real clear. Ms. Esther referred to her alderman having promised a community meeting. That was before my time, so she was referring, I'm sure, to Alderman Kemp, because the building was turned back to the city before I was elected in 2005. So I just want to be clear. I think that people think that I promised a meeting that I didn't have, so that has not, that didn't happen. So it wasn't me that she was referring to. However, I do want to say that since this process began with 1817 Church, that we have continued to raise questions, tried to find other groups that wanted to use the building, and I think that there have been proposals that were not acceptable to HUD, and finally this proposal did come last April, came before CDGB first. Then it was referred to the Economic Development Committee. So there has been lots and lots of time for community input. Personally, I had some questions. So it was presented in November. It was held in December so that those questions could be answered. I've always been on record as saying I think it's a good project. I just had some questions about some logistic things with the proposal and with the process, making sure that there are going to be public benefits that will benefit our community. And those questions were answered for me during the holiday, and they're in the packet. I'm sure everyone had a chance to see them. And I'm fine with it. So,
Alderman Grover?
The way I see it, this is a building in a critical part of Evanston that we want to see renovated and occupied. We want to see people in and out of it. We want to support Evanston-based businesses. We want to support our minority businesses and our local contractors who are doing all the good work in Evanston. And we need to comply with myriad HUD regulation as to how this property, and CDBG, how the property can be used and how its ownership can be transferred. And this seems to be the solution to all of those questions, and I'm really glad that we've been able to work it out. So thank you very much to staff, and thank you for our local contractors for pulling it all together and putting it together for us. This is a building, not a tearing apart, so it's all good.
Mr. Lineweber, did you want to say anything? Could all of you stand again? I know I ask you to do this every time. Thank you so much for coming forward and doing something great for this area. Really appreciate it. I was on community development along with Alderman Holmes during this whole process with church, the 1817 church. And I'm unbelievably thrilled that we're going to have an outstanding user, a lot of activity, as Alderman Grover said. We went through a lot of reiterations of trying to figure out what to go in that building, and a lot of money thrown at it, and didn't seem to work, and I'm so excited about moving forward. So thank you so much.
Make it succeed.
Great. I think it'll be great for your ward, Alderman.
Well, we're going to see about that, and we'll certainly be watching it, so don't push it.
Okay.
But we'll be watching it to make sure that the criteria that has been set up, that we're going to follow that and look at it and make sure that that's going to happen.
Great. We have moved and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. A 12.2, Resolution 64-R-11, authorizing the city manager to execute a TIF, tax increment financing construction loan agreement for the renovation of 1817 Church. Staff request adoption of Resolution 64-R-11, which authorizes the city manager to lend $200,000 from the West Evanston Tax Increment Financing District Fund to the Evanston North Shore Contractors Cooperative, LLC, for the renovation of 1817 Church Street property. This resolution was held in committee on December 12th, 2011.
Move approval.
Second.
Any questions? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
All those in favor? Aye.
Madam Chair.
Yeah.
And APNW want to announce that APNW will begin in 3